Highlighting this thought, I'm going to read that again. Paul next says that in him, in Christ, we also have forgiveness of sins. And that is what I said. This is a complementary thought to the previous clause. The word forgiveness signifies complete release of someone from an obligation or debt. Is done. Sin's penalty is ended through the work of Christ for all who believe. The redemption through his blood, Paul's words, looks at the work of atonement from God's perspective. That's what I said this last week, and I say it again now. We cannot look at these things from our perspective. If we look at Israel in the world from our perspective, we will say, well, God is done with them. God is turned away from them, and the church has replaced Israel. That is not how God looks at Israel. God looks at Israel from God's perspective, which is from above, not below. And when he sees Israel, he sees the same disobedient people that we see in the world today. They're filled with all of the same problems that the rest of the world has, probably multiplied by 5,000. But God covenanted with them. And because he did, he is looking at things from his perspective. And he says, I am not going to betray my covenant with them. Okay? And that's what we need to remember. Okay? We are looking at something from God's perspective. The forgiveness of sins looks at it from our side. Oh, I'm free of my sins. One can see the work of the God-man in this. He completed both. There is the heavenly side, and there is the earthly side. Together, they unite in him for reconciliation between the two. Once again, you will see that coming up in Joshua chapter 3, the sermons from that. Okay, you won't see it this week because this week is just the first half, but you will see it. Okay, it is coming. The uniting of God and man. Very clear in there. Okay, Charles Ellicott notes that in order from the previous verse, we see the first cause of our salvation, which is the Father's love. Here in verse 14, we see the efficient cause, which is the redemption and propitiation of the Son. Okay? When you talk about causes, I'm going to read you something if I can find it. I'm going away, so I won't be in the thing for a second, but I usually won't do this, but it's funny that that came up with Charles Ellicott, because I talk about 4 causes in the sermon coming up on Sunday. And so I just want people to know that I didn't just make this up and suddenly add it in because we went through it today. Let me see if I can find this. If I can, it's not that important. Oh, here it is right here. Now listen to this. This is speaking about the priests carrying the ark into the Jordan River. Okay, you all know that part of Joshua chapter 3. What he talked about causes, efficient and material and all these different causes. He talked about 2 of them. There are 4 causes. I'm going to read this and then you can think about it, and because you're going to hear it again on Sunday. If you're here, if you're not, shame on you. But you're going to hear it on Sunday, and then from there we will discuss it the next week. Okay? The priests bearing the ark are the material cause. Their entry into the Jordan is what makes the thing, like wood in a table, to be. The formal cause, the design, is the parting of the Jordan. The efficient cause, what brings it about, is the Lord's presence working on behalf of Joshua. And the final cause, there's always a final cause, meaning a purpose for something. If I'm going to build a table, I've got a material cause. I've got a formal cause. I've got an efficient cause. Well, I also have a final cause. What is the final cause? Is to have a table. Okay? The final cause, the purpose, is the exaltation of Joshua in the eyes of the people. He specifically said that. We will do these things so that you will be exalted among the people, so that as they followed Moses, now they will follow you. Okay? Now, if you remember that and then think about it, and then think about what is coming up in the next sermon, you'll be ahead of everybody else. That's an important thing. But what Charles Ellicott says here is exactly right. So I'll read it again. Charles Ellicott notes that in order from the previous verse, we see the first cause of our salvation, which is the Father's love. Here in verse 14, we see the efficient cause. What is it? It is the redemption and propitiation of the Son.